Welcome to part 2 of the ukulele video. I'm sorry it's taken so long. It turns out these videos actually take quite a while to make. Who would have thought? Anyway, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who left all their wonderful comments under the last video on the Google Classroom. It was really great to see. There were way too many for me to respond to them all, but you know, it was really nice to see. It really helped boost my ego, you know. So that's always great. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. Now, a lot of people mistakenly think of the ukulele as just a smaller version of the guitar, but it's actually not true at all. There's a lot of differences, the most obvious being the strings. Now, a guitar has 6 strings, tuned E, A, D, G, B, while a ukulele only has 4 strings, tuned G, C, E, A. One way to remember how a ukulele is tuned is to remember the line, giraffes can eat anything. But that's actually not true at all, and as such, we're going to change that to giraffes can't eat anything, because I don't want to see any giraffe-related injuries brought on by misinformation spread by my videos. Now, another difference you may have noticed between the guitar and the ukulele is that the guitar strings go from lowest to highest, but for the ukulele, there's actually a higher string on top. That's known as reentrant tuning, I believe. And basically, if I wanted to play the ukulele strings in order from lowest to highest, I'd actually have to play like this. Some people actually go ahead and replace this higher string with a low string to make the ukulele have a more fuller sound, but it's pretty rare to see. Okay, so anyway, these are the parts of the ukulele. So starting from down here, we have the body, the sound hole, and the strings. And so basically what that is when you play the strings, the sound goes in through the sound hole into the body, and it all sort of echoes around and it amplifies the sound of the ukulele. And then down here we have what's called the bridge, and on top of the bridge, holding the strings in place, is what we call the saddle. And now moving up from the body, just like in human bodies, we have the neck, and sitting on top of the neck is what we call the fretboard. And these sort of things in the fretboard, these sort of bars, are known as the frets, and the places between the frets are called the fret spaces. Now here we also have the nut, which holds the strings together, well, holds the strings in place on the other side. Now basically how the ukulele is played is essentially you just play the strings and you put your fingers on the fretboard behind the different frets, and what that does is it shortens the length of the string, which in turn changes the note that you're playing. So watch this. And you might notice that as we move our finger up the fretboard behind these frets, it basically gets higher and higher. That's because the shorter the string is, the higher the note you play is. Now, another thing to keep in mind about these frets is that they actually stick up above the fretboard, and that way when you put your finger on the fretboard, you don't actually need to be exactly on the spot where the fret is to make that note. You could actually be a little bit behind and it'll still play the same note because it's shortening the length of the string from that fret onwards. So watch this. I'm gonna move it behind the fret, same note. Makes sense? Probably a bit complicated, but anyway. Now, another thing you can do with the ukulele is play multiple strings at once, like that. And basically, you can put your fingers on the fretboard on multiple different strings using different fingers, and it will make what we call chords, like so. And basically, chords are just groupings of different notes together. And now, when we play more than one note together, it's what we call harmony. Now, moving up from the neck and the fretboard is what we call the head, or the headstock. And on the headstock, we also have what are called tuners. Now, these tuning pegs essentially allow me to make sure the ukulele is tuned correctly. Now, I've heard some people say, well, why don't they just get rid of the tuning pegs, and that way I'll be always in tune all the time. But that's actually not true at all, because things like change in temperature can make the strings tighter or looser, which will change the note they play. And so I'm able to always make sure it's always in tune by adjusting the tuning pegs. Alternatively, I might actually just not want to play in standard ukulele tuning. Maybe I want to change this G to a G sharp. Well, now I've got the option. I could tune that up and tighten it and make it a G sharp. Or let's say I'd want the C to go all the way down to A. I could loosen the C up. It's really up to you. Now, another thing that I hear a lot is that the ukulele is in tune when all the pegs are facing upwards. That's not true at all. Please stop touching the pegs after I tune it, because no, that's not how it works. You're just making it out of tune. Please, don't touch the pegs. I was going to go ahead and try and teach you some very basic chords and show you how to hold the ukulele, how to strum and whatnot, but I feel like this video is already going to be long enough as it is, so I've decided we're going to cut that out and maybe save that for a future video. There are actually a lot of different types of ukuleles, with the most common ones probably being soprano, concert, tenor, and then baritone. The one I have here is a soprano, and this is also the one that we have at school. It is probably the most common type of ukulele that you see, with the second most common probably being the concert. Despite all the different sizes, they're actually all mostly tuned the same way, with the exception of the baritone, which is actually tuned like the highest 4 strings on the guitar. So that would be D, G, B, and then E. And in addition to the sizes we've already talked about, there are actually sizes even smaller than the soprano ukulele, like the sopranino or pocket ukulele. And even smaller than that is the sopranissimo. And then on the other side of things, we can actually get even lower than the baritone ukulele with bass ukuleles and contrabass ukuleles, which are tuned and played like bass guitars. Plus, there are even some weird in-between sizes, like for instance, there's super sopranos, which are a little bit bigger than sopranos, and then there are also tenor XLs, which are just a little bit bigger than tenors, and instead of having the high G string on top, they actually tune it down to a low G string, plus many, many more. And we haven't even started to mention all the crazy different variations of ukuleles, like pineapple ukuleles, banjolales, electric ukuleles, 8-string ukuleles, resonator ukuleles, so on and so forth. There's thousands of them, but really we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's try and get back on track. Now, there are many different ways to play the ukulele, the two most common of which are probably strumming, which is what I do most, which is very rhythmic, and you sort of bring one hand down all the strings at once, and you use your other hand to form chords, and so multiple notes are playing at once. And the other very popular way to play ukulele is fingerstyle, which is a lot more melodic. And now, I don't actually do a lot of fingerstyle, but I'll give it a try for you today, and then probably put in an example of someone actually doing it correctly, but we'll see how we go. Or maybe something like, I don't know. Do you see how fingerstyle puts a lot more emphasis on the actual melody of the song? Unlike strumming, which plays all the notes at once, fingerstyle, you're putting a lot more focus on the individual notes of the melody. Even though you can play multiple notes at once, there's a clear focus on some notes, which you could sing along to, for instance. Like with Here Comes the Sun, there was a clear emphasis put on or whatever. Anyway, for the song that we're going to be putting together, which again is La Vie en Rose, since each week we're going to be adding more and more instruments to it, and we're eventually going to sing over it, I'm probably just going to play some rhythmic sort of strumming over it, since I think it's best to keep it simple. But really, who am I to tell you what to do? Music's all about doing what you want, and you know, I want to keep it simple because, hey, it's way easier as well. So that's what we're going to do. Anyway, let's get to learning this song.
Hey, it's me, Sam's ukulele. Now, he doesn't know this, but I can speak. That's right, I'm a sentient being with feelings, dreams, and emotions, trapped within this hollow wooden shell of a body. But hey, my quality of life isn't important. What is important is if you want to watch the next episode where Sam works out the chords to La Vie en Rose, then you should check the link in the description. Anyway, I gotta bounce before anyone sees me.